Hello, everybody. Hope everyone's doing well on this Saturday evening. We have our good friend Anthony from Bleacher Gaming and creator of Glory Days Boxing. We're going to do a quick little chat. Anthony's going to tell us what's coming up regarding the featherweights in Glory Days Boxing, and someone's premiering his first Glory Days Boxing match on his channel, Kurt Berglund, which I think is going to be coming up around 8 o'clock. So we'll wait to see when that comes up, and then we'll swing over there. Hope everyone is having a wonderful Saturday. How are you, Anthony?
I'm doing great. And yeah, shout out to Kurt. Give him a sub, guys, if you haven't. He does a great job with baseball, and he's done a really good job actually promoting this this Ali Tyson fight over the last week. I'm
looking forward to it.
Yeah, it'll be fun. Hey, what's up, Bears? Welcome, buddy.
Hello, yeah. Bears Den 007. Again, let's see if Al remembers how to do this. Yes, I do. Awesome sauce. So, Anthony, up next with Glory Days Boxing, which can be purchased on sidelinestrategies.com. I provided some links in the chat and on the page, but for some reason, YouTube is messing up. The links, the second links in the chat should work. One is to Sideline Strategies if you'd like to check out Glory Days Boxing. There's some freebies. You can actually look to see how a demo fight in a way, how the game's played. Also, there's a link to Anthony's channel, Bleacher Gaming on YouTube. So please, if you haven't, please subscribe to that. And then there's a link to Kurt Berglund's channel. I forgot to put, he creates season for Pine Tar Baseball. I do enjoy that game, so check out Pine Tar Baseball. But the link is to Kurt Berglund's channel, and he'll be having a Glory Days Boxing, Muhammad Ali, Mike Tyson, on his channel, his first Glory Days Boxing on his channel. I think he's played some matches already. So throw into the chat who you think is going to win that. A lot of people picked Ali in that one. Probably will win, but you never know when a big puncher hits you on the jaw.
All it takes is one shot, baby.
You know, I always go back to Anthony, one of my favorite fighters of all time, Henry Cooper. I hope I did that proud saying that way. You know, if he nailed Ali 30 seconds sooner, like he says in that little interview, might have been a different story. But so are you? Oh, sorry.
No, I was going to say, I mean, no, that's right. You saw, I did a fight earlier with Peter Jackson and Tom Sharkey, and I was settling in for a nice 10, 15 round war, and it was over in 34 seconds.
But that's boxing.
It is boxing.
What makes your game so great is it emulates boxing. Anything can happen. It's a fun game. It flows well. Again, I'm a big supporter of the game because I love the game. And you're very receptive to to the community. And a wonderful Facebook group page. It's a lot of fun. If you're on Facebook and you have Glory Days Boxing or interesting Glory Days Boxing or boxing in general, check out the Glory Days Boxing Facebook group page. Big Polly is here.
What's up, Big Polly?
Check out that.
Yeah, no, like I've said a lot, Al. I mean, it's just cool to me that people enjoy the game. It's ultimately too, when you buy a game, I think it becomes your game. And that, as I've talked about before, I've tried to make Glory Days Boxing flexible so you can add house rules. I've got a lot of optional rules, so you can tailor your own experience and get the most out of it. So.
You had a rule today that I don't think I didn't realize it was an optional rule. I don't know if you just came up with it a little while ago. If a fighter goes down, he's hurt for 2 segments.
Oh, the 9 count rule?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
the 9 count rule. I'm sorry. The 9 count.
Yeah, that is in the rule book. It's actually only on a 9 count, and that just stimulates barely getting up in time. Yeah.
Oh, that's cool. I got to remember that because I like that. That's could come in handy. It's funny when you're rating the fighters and you do a lot of research on it. It's not like baseball. It's not like, okay, there's statistics with boxing, don't get me wrong, but it's really, you have to look at quality of opponents to determine what's going on. What, with your featherweight set, which is coming up and out by end of January, early February, we'll say, what is something interesting that you always find out interesting stuff because you're a historian. So what's something you want to share with us that you found out that you didn't know maybe, which I would be in shock.
Yeah, no, I don't know anything really any revelations with this. One thing that has really, I guess, kind of reinvigorated my appreciation for Willie Pep is going back and doing when I was doing research for him, watching some of his old fights.
Yeah,
and you really don't realize. I mean, he's regarded as such a great defensive fighter.
He threw punches, though.
Huh?
He threw punches, though. It's not like he didn't throw punches. You know,
he was exciting to watch. But when you watch his footwork, if you watch. Sadly, you don't see a lot of his footwork in modern boxing. Probably the biggest comparison would be Vasily Lomachenko.
Yeah.
But Willie Pep utilized the V step a lot. And if you're in the chat and don't know what that is, it's if you're orthodox, you'll bring your lead foot back so it's parallel and close to your trail foot. And from there, you'll step up with your other foot and basically switch stances.
Yep.
And the way Pep would do it, from that parallel position, he could use it to either step forward with the opposite foot and attack or step back in a defensive posture. And he was quick and very, very adept at it. But you'll look now, a lot of modern MMA fighters use that same technique because of the fact that kicks are involved in MMA and not so much in boxing anymore.
Right. Well, I remember Elijah Tillery threw a kick against Riddick Bowe, I think, on USA Network. That was one of those wild, funny fights Riddick Bowe was involved in. The other thing funny with Willie Pep, everyone talks about the Sandy Sadler fights, which are 4 of the dirtiest fights you will ever see in your life. I put one link up on the Glory Days boxing channel. I think that was the 4th fight. I think that is, if you want to learn how to gouge someone's eyeball out with a thumb, that's the fight for you to watch. It was just tremendously dirty. And the funny thing was, it was Rocky Marciano had a show on TV in the 50s where he would watch fights, and it was Jonathan Winters was in the little studio thing they do, and so that was kind of funny to watch them two interact. But Rocky Marciano kept saying, "Why is Willie Pep?" And again, they know these fights were done before, and they're just watching them over. But why isn't he boxing? He would get so angered with Sandy Sadler, like Sadler would get in his head. And Sandy Sadler was a tough hombre. You do not want to mess with Sandy Sadler. Tall, thin, strong, and could punch. Very tough fighter. So,
and he could mix it up with the best of them too. And like you said, that 4th fight they had was it would make Fritzy Zivic proud. It was a
Fritzy Zivic, another dirty fight. I've watched you can't find the whole. I've never found the whole fights, any of them. You can see highlights now and then. I think the 2nd fight, I think he beat Sadler. There's one he wins a 15-round decision because he just kind of sticks with boxing and doing his thing. But Sandy Sadler, and other people don't know, and I think I'm correct. If I'm wrong, someone correct me or Anthony. The junior lightweight title was around then, not highly respected. And I think he actually won a junior lightweight. He stepped up a little bit and won that title also. I remember reading something about that. And the junior titles had come around a little bit, even then, which I was really in shock to read. And he took a junior lightweight title. He never fought at light. I mean, to my knowledge, he never really fought a big fight at lightweight. I don't think he did, but.
And I think really a lot of that too. Boxers didn't fluctuate a lot between weight divisions back then. Notable exceptions like Henry Armstrong. But yeah. I think part of that too is boxers were just so much more active, and I think part of the reason boxers move up now is when you're inactive and you're cutting weight. Like Ricky Hatton would get up around 190 pounds.
Yes,
and have 45, and he'd drink and smoke, and it's tough on the body, so it's harder to keep getting down. And I think a lot of those old fighters just trained constantly and fought constantly, so they were, they didn't fluctuate as much.
Yeah, as Big Paulie says, 241 fights for Pep or thereabouts. Sandy Sadler had a ton of fights too, and again, Anthony previewed Salvador Sanchez, Willie Pep on his channel. And he was gracious enough to send me 3 boxers. I did Sandy Sadler and Salvador Sanchez, both fun fights. I did a fight offline that I shared with just the little written recap of Sadler and Pep. And my God, it was wild for 7 rounds, and then Sadler ended up stopping Willie Pep on cuts. So I look forward to, you're going to do a Sadler and Pep live on your channel.
Yeah, I am.
Oh, that's awesome.
And poor Salvador, I rate Sanchez. I mean, he's definitely, you can make a case for him as a top 5 featherweight of all time. Absolutely. And, just two tough matchups for him.
Well, yeah, he's fighting. They're all 3 of them are 10-starred fighters. It's just the roll of the dice. But the Sadler Pep fight was so, Pep had knocked him down though. That was that was a little different, but it was still, he couldn't take him out. And then Sadler, it really was like one of the, where you just wore him down. He started to land more punches, wore him down. So that's the beauty of your game. Just like boxing, sometimes you get the surprises, sometimes you get the expected, and sometimes you get the, what the hell was Adelaide Byrd looking at, which is always fun.
I notice you like using her a lot too as one of your judges.
I do, because I'm like the always adventurous Adelaide Byrd. But I saw where you use the generic judges, which you can find right on the chart, on the game sheet, I call it, or the game board. And I did that for my little Coppa Italia thing that I was doing, because I try to figure out how can I fight, like for me to be interested in, because I have all the fighters and I love fighting them all. And I just like something that interests me. And they've been fun fights. I posted the results up on the Glory Days Boxing Facebook page. And again, really fun Facebook page. I thank you for having it, and thank you for making this game.
No, great community there too, for sure.
Yeah. With the featherweights, are you set in stone with your 100 yet?
Yeah, I did. I did remove one from the original list because I want to start, getting some modern active fighters, especially some of the great up and comers.
Yeah.
I dropped Dick Hollywood, who was basically just a scrub, and added Shakur Stevenson. I know nice. Stevenson's fighting at junior light now, but he had a good run at featherweight. Title there. So I'm gonna add Stevenson there. And I think I've decided after featherweights to do a compilation set of multiple weight divisions and come back to flyweight, because I want to get
fighters.
Gervonta Davis, I want to get in there. Teofimo Lopez, Ryan Garcia, Caleb Plant, who's fighting later in a couple of weeks. He's very good.
Teofimo, I just messed up his name. The guy who beat Vasily Jurov.
Yeah.
Vasily
Lomachenko.
Oh Cruiserweights on the brain for some reason. I normally don't. His dad is a bit hyper, we'll say. Just his
dad's a pain in the ass. I don't like the dad at all.
Yeah, he's a pain in the ass. But I tell you something, he's got his son. He plays into it a little bit, but you watch him like when he gives his interviews. I think his son is generally a pretty nice guy, right?
No, the son has confidence for sure, and need confidence, but he's earned every bit of what he's done. He's a hard worker. He's a talented kid too.
What the fight I'm looking forward to is if Ryan Garcia, who just won, was it last week, the week before?
2 weeks ago. Yeah.
He stopped the English. I'm sorry?
Luke Campbell.
Luke Campbell, thank you. Campbell had his shot, Anthony. He said he knew. It was almost like the Max Schmeling thing. I was watching those interviews because on the Zone, because I have that and I really enjoy that one. And he was talking. So I watched some of the interviews. And he goes, "Well, we got something." And all I kept thinking was, when I started to watch the fight, was he's waiting to counter him. He's going to make this kid walk into something. He's going to do a Max Schmeling. I think I see something. He nailed him, sent him down, and then I think his mistake was he tried to replicate that one shot again. That's just my opinion. I think he should have probably tried to jump on him just slightly more. But that Ryan Garcia is just like, wow.
Well, and you had that spot on. I mean, Ryan Garcia hadn't really faced adversity prior to that. And Campbell, as a veteran, should have jumped on that, pressed the action. And I don't know if he just sat back and admired it or thought he could. But Garcia is too dangerous.
Yeah, it was a great setup. He nailed him with a beautiful shot, and I was like, he's got him. And then when he didn't get him, and then the next round he kind of tried to, Teresa and I were watching the fight because I make her watch boxing with me. Boy, she loves that. And it's almost like football with you and your wife, right?
Yeah.
That was pretty funny on the Facebook.
The funny part was when she said Giants the first time I capped it. She's like, Giants. Like,
yeah, she's
making the playoffs.
It's just funny. That's good stuff. I love those stuff. So the 100 featherweights are set. And if Kurt Berglund's gone, I haven't got my notification yet. So I'm just going to put this really go to my phone real quick and see back. And nope, not up yet. Okay. We'll continue on a little bit longer. And again, Kurt Berglund, I think he's uploading, or I think he's doing it premiere style. I don't think he's doing it live, but please check out that channel. Ali versus Mike Tyson, first Glory Days bout on his channel. He's been playing it offline, I do believe. So what are, besides Pep, Sadler, and Sanchez, Barry McGuigan?
He's there.
Okay. Eusebio Pedrosa.
He is not.
Okay.
He'll be one. The guys that fought primarily is junior, and I'll go over the feathers real quick here.
Oh, good. I actually went on this.
The top ones.
I went on this morning to see if a list was there, and I didn't see one. Or was it Friday? I don't know. I think it was Friday. But yeah, I'd love to go over the list. That's awesome.
So the top guys.
Yep.
I get to it. Rather than go through all 100, I'll call out some of the.
Yeah, that's off.
So boxing wise, going back, Hogan Bassett, Percy Bassett, a couple of very talented.
What year? Early 1900s?
Mm-hmm. Bassett was 1940s and 50s.
Oh, okay. I've learned something.
Around that same, before 20s and 30s, the Cuban Bonbon Kid Chocolate.
Yeah, I've heard of him.
One of my favorites. He really wasn't a stellar technician, but I loved him because he was so rough and tumble. Troy Dorsey had a couple of memorable.
Love Troy Dorsey. Troy Dorsey would fight Jorge Paez.
Jorge Paez.
Fights were just fun to watch, and he wasn't a big puncher, but he would just get on. He also was a kickboxer, I believe.
He was a kickboxing champion. Yeah.
Yeah. He would just get on top of you and he would, ha, 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 and he would just sit there and throw a punch. He had some, he was a fun fighter to watch.
Tough to hurt, but he has the bleeder trait because he was tons of scar tissue, bled a lot, and that resulted in him getting stopped. Yep. So yeah, he's in there. The vanquisher of Barry McGuigan, Stevie Cruz, will be in there.
Him in Las Vegas. I remember watching that fight.
Another active guy who's winding down, Yuri Gamboa, will be in there. Wilfredo Gomez. And, actually, I haven't rated him yet, but he's down here at the bottom of my to-do. Eusebio Pedrosa will be in there. So.
Oh, okay.
David Cote, Juan Laporte.
Juan Laporte, yeah.
Go ahead.
Wilfredo Gomez, will he be rated at feather? Because he's a tween, he really was super bantamweight, but then he had that war with Sanchez, which he lost, which that corner did I watched that fight over last Saturday just because I wanted to, and I've watched it quite a few times. I said, I really wanted to pay attention to the corner. They did such a crappy job trying to reduce the swelling of his eyes. Yeah. Then he did step up and win the featherweight championship. So is Wilfredo Gomez.
Yes, he is there rated as a feather. From another favorite fighter from across the pond, my homeland during the 80s and 90s, Paul Hodkinson will be in there.
Good fighter.
I said Juan Laporte. The original Davey Moore will be in there. Azuma Nelson. Great fights with Jeff Fennick back in the day.
Yeah.
And probably some other ones that people will recognize. And that's the other thing. A lot of people don't know a lot of the feathers. Like I mentioned, Shakur Stevenson, Mauricio Stecca, if you remember him, will be in there.
Fought in the Olympics.
And of course, BT, Bernard Taylor.
Bernard Taylor was a good fighter, never won it. He got beat by Eusebio Pedrosa and Barry McGuigan in his title shots. I know McGuigan beat him in I want to say Belfast.
So yeah, there'll be, as usual, there'll be a good mix between eras, and of course, already one of my all-time favorite little guys, Daniel Lopez, will be in there, and
that's gonna be so much fun to throw him in a bunch of fights, to see him fight other fighters.
He was so fun to watch because he was such a stiff fighter. I mean, he fought so straight up and did not much head movement, just plot. He was like a European style almost. And he'd invariably get shook up early in his fights, but come back and score some devastating knockouts later. And of course had the misfortune of running into Sanchez a couple of times.
Yeah, that's Salvador Sanchez. What was his death? 21, 22, 23.
23 years old, yeah.
Yeah, car crash. Just such a talent.
And he'd already had 46 fights at that point, and was already tagged as, a potential all-time great. And I think he definitely would have been. He was only going to get better.
It would have been interesting. It would have been interesting. Oh, here's one. Is Alexis Arguello a featherweight?
I did not rate. He's rated as a lightweight, so I didn't rate him as a feather.
Okay.
There'll be guys like that too. Like I didn't do an official Aaron Pryor card. I released a freebie at welterweight, but he's someone I'll put in that, make an official card in a compilation set, and a lot of the other junior weight guys as well. Like the other Davey Moore that actually both Davey Moores met very young and tragic endings.
Oh, did the featherweight also?
Yeah, he died. He died before he was 30 as well.
Because I remember Davey Moore was still boxing. It was a motorcycle accident, car accident.
I think I believe he was working on his car. And
I knew it was something with a car or something.
Slipped off the jack and crushed him or something. Similar to like what happened with Vidrich. Yeah,
Vidrich was working on either a truck or a tractor or something on his farm. So. But, I'm looking forward to the featherweight set. So many fun fights out there using Glory Days boxing. And again, that can be purchased on sidelinestrategies.com. That's where you also get payoff pitch. So that's where you can find that. And there are freebies up there. So if you do have the game, there are some freebie fighters. So go there and check it out. And you can get the scorecards for free to download and reprint at your leisure. Unlike some other companies that want you to pay to get their stupid box score thing for baseball. I won't mention the name.
You can, if you want to try the game out. The only thing you really can't download is the charts, which is, but you can get an idea of the engine by downloading the rules and some of it.
That being said, the majority, let me grab a card that I have right over here. Where are they? That chart falls down. Oh, where are they? All right, Roland La Starza. You can see the card again. Beautiful, really nice quality. But the majority of can never get this to focus. That's why I do what I do the way I do it. The majority of results come off the card anyway, so you could get a really good idea of how the game plays. And the game plays marvelously, in my opinion. And you know what? My opinion on this game is correct. So
we'll go with that, Al.
Thank you. It's a fun game. Again, I have other boxing games. I like this one. And it's not even just the boxing game. It's my favorite card and dice game, period, because I'm a big boxing fan. And it just, to me, it flows. People have asked, I was doing my second football game today, and I don't remember who brought it up, but someone, was it RA or RF, because he picked up the welterweight set?
Yeah, Ron. Oh, yeah. I just shipped that to him today, actually. That's all right. Yeah.
And he was I think it was him who asked, he goes, will there be a PC version? I said, well, maybe in the future. I know Anthony's talked about that. And
still, it's going to be one of two things. There's a guy like I think I mentioned earlier that has done a base draft and actually a working schematic of the game. life pulled him away to other things, obviously. So, but and he didn't want to just work on it here and there, and he was very upfront. And because of that, if he decides he's got time to come back, I definitely give him first crack.
Right.
In the meantime, 2 of my kids are learning to program. So
that's awesome.
Yeah. So if we get down the road, nothing comes there, I'll put one of them to work, and that will actually be much cheaper for me too. What's up, fam?
The only thing I asked for the computer game, an option that we could roll our own dice, then punch it in. That's if it's possible, because that's
fun. So you mean roll and then enter like you do on
Strat, or even replay baseball. It's just one thing, but you know what? It's a question people ask probably if they have a small, what's it called, footprint. They want to not have all the cards. I look forward when I order the cards, and they get here so quick. When I order them, I love the cards. It's a fun game. I do enjoy it. It flows. I played in, as well as you did, a lot of title bout way back when, and that's a fun game too. I'm not saying it's not, but I was talking to Anthony offline before going. I always try to figure out. Again, I didn't know about 10-sided dice. I had like 2 6-sided dice. I didn't know anything about these other sided dice, and except for this is even before Strat. I didn't even have Strat yet, and I didn't even know there was a 20-sided dice. And I used to try to figure out how to play with 2 6-sided dice. Because I was like, I hated flipping cards. Because then I'd start counting cards. I go, I know exactly. Like sometimes you kind of, this ain't gonna happen. Where when you're rolling dice, anything can happen. So.
And I always get. I do think I'm going to try and get that option, because like you, sometimes even using like automated dice rollers, like there's an automated roller for today's boxing.
There is.
And I just wonder, I don't know, I'm sure it's just as random as throwing dice, but still in the back of your mind, you always think, rolling them is different. And it's probably not at all.
It's just fun. I like to roll the dice. Sometimes it's a nice, I've been more into my card and dice games. Sometimes I don't want to play the PC games. I work at a PC all day, and I'm like, I don't want to. Yeah.
One thing I'd like to do on the computer, well, eventually with this, once I get, all the original 8 sets out and whatnot, I'm going to do some add-ons, cornermen.
That I look forward to that.
In fact, and these will all be freebies. Career type module to where you can adjust fighters' ratings for different career stages and whatnot. And I'd like to incorporate that into a computer game. So really, I'm in no rush to get to a computer game. I want to have all the other stuff out so that it's a lot easier to factor in and incorporate.
And the other thing I forgot to say on the freebie site, 30 tomato cans, and they're non-weight, so you can make them any weight you want. And so if you really wanted to try out the game with a bunch of different fun fighters, you can just download the freebie, the tomato cans, which if you want to do a career replay and you just, you want to build up a fighter with against fictional fighters. And I think there's a few real ones in there.
There's a few real ones and a few you can tell by the names that they're homage to Mike Tyson's Punch-Out.
A couple of names. And I forgot who did it, but someone on the Facebook group page actually did a tournament with all those fighters. It was a lot of fun to follow that. And I can't remember who did it, but I followed it. It was really fun to read all that stuff.
Steeler fan 1933 Matt, he incorporates them into his universe. He's got a
big component of the game. It's what it brings back, and I have to thank you for bringing. I always still watched boxing and followed it a bit, but this has brought me back to really enjoying boxing, because there are a lot of still talented fighters in a lot of different weight classes. And I think, like you said, I think the lightweights are stacked with a lot of good fighters. I think that is the fun division to me right now. And I look forward to some really, like I said, Garcia against the guy who beat Lomachenko. Why I forget that guy's name? Lopez. Is it Lopez?
Well, Garcia will probably fight Davis.
Right. That's a great fight. It's just the other one is more like, God, they're going to build it up like wrestling. Not that I really like all the hype, but it's just going to be, I can only wait to hear what comes out of his father's mouth. That's all I can. Garcia is incredible. Just he hits so hard, and he has that crossover to an audience that might not normally watch boxing.
Well, he does. He's got that social, like his Instagram has X million, where I don't know how many followers. I don't have that, but he's a big social media guy, and he brings in a lot of people just from the stuff he does there. It's good to me. It's good for boxing because boxing was so marginalized. UFC, when it started to take off, people really didn't care at all about boxing. And, finally now with PBC and with ESPN getting back into it, we're getting, and, even the Lopez Lomachenko fight, a fight of that caliber for free in this day and age. So we're starting to get back to quality fights, and, pardon the term, it was just bullshit the way fighting was in like the 90s, where guys would fight bums and be safe and build up for years and years to a mega fight that they could charge people $100. That's why you turn people off. Plus there's so many organizations. So yeah, I think we're going to see a resurgence in the bright young stars like Lopez and Garcia and Davis, who are doing it and engaging an audience outside of the hardcore boxing fan, is going to breathe some life.
And they want to fight each other.
They want to.
Yeah, as opposed to, the money's not right. These guys know. It's almost like it's a little old school, where you say, why do those guys, again, LaMotta and Robinson, why they fight so many times? Why did Pep and Sadler fight? That's how they made money. Whether they wanted to fight or not, that's their moneymaker. That's why they fought each other.
Yeah. And like Floyd Mayweather, I'll give him props. I'm not a Mayweather hater. I think he is artistically and technically as sound as anyone who's ever fought in the ring. The subtle stuff he does so good. But let's be honest, he was always a businessman first before a fighter. He knew how to milk things and catch people at the right time and get the maximum profit. These other guys are fighters before they're businessmen, and it doesn't matter because they're going to make their money anyway because people see them fight each other.
I mean, I made that joke or the comment on the Facebook group page, Glory Days Boxing. I don't really fight a lot with Floyd May. It's not my – I want to see – it's my boxing universe, so I want to see fun fights. And Mayweather was awesome, all-time great. Just when he got later on in life, when he was a lightweight, he had some good he was just so good. There's a couple of fights. The Mexican fighter who gave him hell always slips my name, but that was the only time I thought he could have possibly had a chance to lose.
Maidana?
That was another good. I forgot those two guys, but there was another one. Lightweight, I can see the guy. Castillo, maybe. That's not his name. But they fought twice. And in the second time, I thought Mayweather actually won the fight pretty handily, though it was tough. And they had it much closer than the first. I'm like, how do you people see these fights? I mean, there's no way he even came close to losing this one, even though the guy fought basically the fighter I can't remember, and I'm going to look it up. He fought the same way. He did the best he could, except Mayweather adapted to it. Where the other guy,
Mayweather would sit down on his punches a lot more as a lightweight too, and but he's it is what it is with him, and if it worked for him, I mean, even now he's fighting that YouTube guy, Logan Paul.
Yeah, he's gonna make money.
Yeah, he's going to make $25 million. He won't have to train much. It'll be like it would be like me walking into his gym and sparring with him.
Yeah.
I mean, shit, 30 years ago, I would have kicked Logan Paul's ass too, taking a payday for it.
His ass now.
Huh?
You might kick his ass now.
I'm a little too old now, but
you don't want to in there anyway. You got to stay around a long time. Make some Glory Days. But yeah, wrestling game. I want the wrestling game. So.
We talked, and I think baseball, I'm going to let people test for a while.
Yeah.
I'm in no hurry to do that. One, because it's just takes so long to rate seasons, and I need to get a better way to extract data. Wrestling, I'm leaning towards that, and I've got some ideas to not just like Glory Days Boxing is a straight simulation with the wrestling game, similar mechanic in game, but I want to incorporate some other things like have pre-card charts where you have a feud chart and, you do segments, interviews, and attacks and things like that. Like, it's going to be very, very old school 80s territory type theme when I release it.
Not to get off the subject, but with wrestling, I will listen to these Jim Cornette like podcasts on YouTube just because his knowledge of wrestling. And I used to like the Midnight Express. But they brought up a match, and they do this thing where they do a watch along, and I didn't know, and I wasn't feeling good last week, and I was just listening, and they're talking about Stan Hansen and Andre the Giant, this match from Japan, and so he goes, you can find it on Daily Motion. So I went and I found it. This is later on. That is one of the best matches I've ever seen in my life. Period. Andre the Giant actually does stuff in this match, and Stan Hansen again. Forgive me. I thought because they built it up, Hulk Hogan was the first guy to slam Andre the Giant, which is not true. There's actually a YouTube video. It's hilarious of all the people who have slammed Andre the Giant, and he had to like you to let you slam him. But that with Stan Hansen, it was just incredible to watch. It was in Japan, so the fans were into it. It was just, it was beautiful. It was art. It was art.
Well, Stan Hansen was an absolute god in Japan. I think he might still be the only American wrestler to win the Triple Crown in Japan.
Did he?
Which is, a very high honor, but he was loved over there. You'd see
over there.
Huh?
He was a good guy over there. So,
and just that style of wrestling, and obviously I don't know that you could have the territory days now because of media and social media and whatnot, but to me it was just much more engaging back then. And I don't really watch. I watch AEW a little bit now, and there's some good wrestlers, good talents there, but just the over the top all-time choreographed flips out of there. It's more like watching acrobats and stuntmen versus
that's exactly right. There's something, the interviews, that's what I miss. You watch those guys give the interviews, it's hilarious, and they do a good job, the guys who could do it.
Some current guys that are pretty good on the stick. MJF, have you seen him?
No, I don't watch much. I've watched there's something on YouTube. I watched a little bit of it. It's NWA, but it's not like the old NWA, but they have a couple of people there. They can handle the mic, and they're kind of funny. So
Oh, the Billy Corgan reboot.
Yeah.
Yeah, they had Ricky Starks was in there. He's with AEW now. He's good on the mic.
I'll tell you the other thing that I enjoyed about, and we'll get back to Glory Days Boxing, just because I'm trying to get Anthony to do Glory Days Wrestling some point in the future. The other thing I miss about the old wrestling, they called it like a sport, even when I knew it was fake. And I enjoyed that. That was just.
Well, and you did. You had guys like, well, obviously, I watched a lot of Georgia Championship Wrestling. So you had Gordon Soley, who was a legend.
Yeah, he was excellent.
Gene Okerlund did a pretty good job. What's up, Peter?
Hello,
and
Peter.
Probably, yes, you either do love or hate Corny. I go back and forth sometimes with him, but he's very interesting to listen to.
You know, with him, and then we'll get back, he just has so much knowledge in the stories he tells. And I've discovered not just him, but like wrestlers talking about the business, sort of. And some of them still, they're not going to tell you it's fake because they wrestle in that day and age. But, to listen to, they were asking Bruno Sammartino one time, they go, was it a shoot? I think I used that right. Against Buddy Rogers. Because you beat him in 41 seconds. No one ever takes the title. And he goes, well, what happened there was they come into my locker room. This is how he finds out he's going to win the title, right? Buddy's done. One of the promoters took Shore, who was partners with Vince Sr. McMahon up here in the East, right? Goes, he hated Buddy Rogers because what Rogers would do, he'd come into a territory with his guys, his friends, and they'd make money. But then because they didn't build anybody else up, and when that got stale, they just would leave. And The two funny things from this interview was they asked him, "Did you ever hear about the Brazil tournaments?" He goes, "Yeah, I thought it was a real thing when I thought I wasn't invited because Buddy Rogers won this tournament in Brazil, like to win the heavyweight, and it's just something they made up." But when he went to wrestle him at the Garden, he goes, "You sure it's all right with Vince?" He goes, and Took Shore told him, he goes, "I don't care if you kill the guy. You can hurt him for all I care. Just make sure you win." And so Sammartino, there's other people who tell this story, right? So he goes into the ring and he goes, normally he kneels down, says a prayer, and gets up. He goes, but Buddy Rogers was really, if he wanted to hurt you, he could, because he could wrestle and he was a strong guy. And he goes, I never turned my back on him because I didn't know if he was going to go along with the long program, or if I knew he was going to resist, I'm supposed to just beat him. And that's what he did. He beat him in like 48 seconds.
Well, that was one of the prerequisites back then, is they would put the title on a guy who was legit.
Yeah.
Who, if somebody tried to double cross a promoter, could definitely, they call it stretching. You know, guys like Harley Race, Bob Bachman was an accomplished wrestler.
Yep.
And
they didn't want to, you're right. They had to put on someone that they didn't want. If someone tried to hose them over or screw them, you'd say, that could defend himself. The other funny stories, as we talk a little wrestling now, just because down in Florida, I can't remember the promoter. Oh my God. But it's like the Florida territory, which is some of Georgia too.
It's probably Dundee, huh?
No, it wasn't Dundee. He could have been. It was his son wrestled too. His son was a smallish wrestler. Oh, I can see these guys. They both end up committing suicide, unfortunately.
Oh, shit.
But this was what, oh God, I can't remember.
Hold on.
It's going to drive me nuts.
No, it's going to bug me, so I have to check.
So the gist of it was, when they brought wrestlers down to this territory, I can see them and I can't remember their names. Oh, don't get old. Yep, here it is. Eddie
Graham.
Graham.
Isn't it Graham?
Yep. Big Paulie, he's a big wrestling fan. He got it.
Yeah, okay. Big Paulie comes through. Awesome.
Yeah. So when Eddie Graham would bring someone down to see if he wanted to sign them or to go to the promotion, they'd have a legitimate fight at the gymnasium. You know, like he'd have a guy go, okay, go at it. I want to see if you can handle yourself. Because he had an unwritten rule. If you got into a fight at a bar or a restaurant, you better win. You better not lose to some Joe Palooka off the street. You better be able to handle yourself. And his son was saying, my dad would handle, he knew people, right? So he could, and plus he says, I'll handle all your legal expenses, which he did. The other story they told with Eddie Graham was they were building up these two wrestlers for this mega match, and he's out eating at a bar restaurant type deal. And he hears the guy going, oh, I can't wait to get tickets for the so-and-so match. And the other guy goes, oh, that's all bullshit. I saw them having a cookout down at the beach. And Eddie Graham went, and he walked over and he bought them a drink and he started talking. He goes, where did you see these guys, right? Just to know if the guy was like BSing or not. And he was telling the truth, because that's where the guys. He goes, my dad, the son is doing the interview. He goes, my dad called. Look, he says, you better get the hell out of this territory. You have 24 hours. One guy actually lived in Florida. He had to leave for 6 months. Don't come back. He goes,
well, Bill Watts was like that too. If you couldn't lose a fight in his territory, or you were fired.
Crazy stories about wrestling. It's incredible.
I read Bob Backlund's autobiography.
How was that?
It really, you'd think because he was such a milquetoast guy, it would kind of be dull, but it was really interesting in as much as that he'd go behind the scenes and talk about the formula Vince Sr. used to book.
Oh,
and it was always the same. It would, depending on how strong the heel was, it would be a 2 to 3 match series. They'd come in one time and beat or they'd lose via DQ or beat him with a count out or because of blood.
Yeah.
So they always use that same formula to make it look like they were a real threat. Then he'd obviously come back in the third match that was always in Madison Square Garden and get the win there to hold on to the strap. But yeah, it was interesting and to use that same formula for so many years, but it always drew big crowds.
The other interesting thing, Billy Graham, superstar Billy Graham, is fun to listen to. Sometimes a bit bitter, but he was talking when he was supposed to drop the belt to Backlund, and he was still having matches with San Martino because San Martino hadn't gone into full retirement yet because they're still making money with Bruno would go, and they asked Billy Graham, why do you always do these steel cage matches? He goes, people loved it, and they're easy to do. And people loved it. He goes, me and Bruno, me and Ivan Putski, and I forgot someone else. And he goes, we'd sell out the Garden, we'd sell out the Spectrum, and then the other big, Boston Garden, we sell out. It doesn't matter. And he's not a big fan of Bob Backlund. I'll just leave it at that. He thought they gave him the title.
I know.
Right? No, because he was promised, again, you don't know what, but he said, I was promised 3 years or thereabouts. You know, like, he goes, I didn't think it'd go 3 years, but I didn't think they were going to take it away from me this quick. And he was a great heel. And he's talking to Bruno one time, and he tells him, you know, that I'm going to have to drop the title. And Bruno says to him, well, that's kind of strange. A kid ain't ready, but he goes, but we're all making money, Bruno said. He goes, I know, I don't understand. So they're wrestling, and now he pitched it to Bruno, and Bruno also tells his story. He goes, I'm going to lose the title to you. He wanted to double cross Vince Sr., right? Or was it? Yeah, it still had to be Vince Sr.
We're still Senior,
yeah. And Bruno's like, we can't do it. You know, Bruno doesn't do stuff like that. But he goes, let me just run it by you. He goes, instead of you knocking me out of the cage, right? I'll be in the corner. You're coming to nail me. I kind of flip you, and you go through the door. You win the title. They ain't going to take the title from you. They might fire me. He goes, but they ain't going to take the title from you. But then Bruno goes, it's a good idea, but we can't do it. He goes, and he said, but you thought about it, didn't you? He goes, yeah, I thought about it.
You know, part of that was Vince Sr. for his world title. He just liked to have a face on top, and he was pretty open about that.
But, you know, when I was a kid, I hated Billy Superstar Graham because he beat Bruno. And again, Bruno, his older matches, he's not really – he actually is better when he comes back after his hiatus, when he's on TV in the early 80s. I'm like, well, you know, you could see there's something – he was hurt or he just was tired of it and just didn't really get into it. But Billy Graham, you go back, watch his old match. The interviews, it's the interviews that are absolutely awesome. A lost art. Death of the Territories by Tim Hornbaker. Great read. I gotta check that out.
Yeah, that's actually on my list. I've got like a few books ahead, but I've got that marked too.
Main events in those Bruno Larry Zbyszko cage matches were good. Yes, they were. Here's a funny story. When I was a kid, I thought they really hated each. I guess there was a little tension because of the way it was done, but they still talked and stuff and became more, had a falling out, then got back together, I guess. Larry Zbyszko was telling them, they want me to lose to so-and-so. And Bruno's like, you can't let that happen because it doesn't make sense. I'll tell you what. You're supposed to beat me anyway, right? But we're going to do it a different way that there's no way they can let that happen because it wouldn't make sense. And they did. They kind of did something. But they wrestled at Shea Stadium to a big crowd, outdoor wrestling.
It was like over 40,000.
And that's at Shea.
And they built things better. You think of the legendary feuds that Tommy Rich and Buzz Sawyer, they feuded for almost a full year, and then they had that cage match in the Omni, and the film they thought was lost, and I think it showed up like a year or so ago.
Oh, cool!
It's on YouTube, Al. It's funny. You look at it. It's spoken about like in mythical proportions, right? And you look at it, and it's not really that spectacular of a match. You know, they both get blood and whatnot, but you know, just the culmination of that whole buildup and that feud really made it, I think, more than it really was as a match.
Main event says, I've seen one of these matches. Bruno and Giant Baba. I've seen the one that goes about an hour. And that Giant Baba out of Japan, he's a strange, awkward, big-looking dude. It's just, he's like very large, but lanky's not the right. It's just, he's different looking than Andre the Giant. That's all I'll say.
Yeah, he's disproportionate.
Yeah, I've seen that. But yeah, so many fun stories with old school wrestling. And
I just look forward to your wrestling game. I have that. There's a fun wrestling game for free on the Sports Replay that you can download. It plays almost like APA, like if APA had a wrestling game, and it's fun. I like playing that. I've looked at a couple other wrestling games, but I'm waiting for yours, Anthony.
Yeah, I want, I've got the gameplay pretty much dialed in. I want to do some of the extra stuff that I think made wrestling unique. And funny, you remember Mr. Saito?
Yep.
So I had a near-death experience with him. I was, I don't even know he was wrestling. He was wrestling in Salt Lake City when he was with the AWA. And I'd known him from Georgia too. And we were there, and there were like me and 4 of my buddies, and I drank way too much.
Uh-oh.
And I thought it was going to be a good idea to run down to ringside. And I don't know what I was going to do, but I got there and decided to spit on him as he was leaving the ring. And it was really funny. Just as I spit, like all the people between us just seemed to part like the Red Sea.
It was him.
So he looked right at me as I'm like, and I hit him in the chest, and he looked down, looked back up, and I was like, shit, this guy is huge. And I'm not a small guy, but he was like, so I ran up the stairs. He came after me. He tried to come over the rail. So yeah, that was my brush with pro wrestling.
I don't know. I think Big Paulie says it right here. I want to bring that back up. They could tell the story back in the day, and they did. They told a wonderful story. Again, if I don't see Kurt Berglund going up yet, so we'll just go a little longer, Anthony, and then we can stop whenever you want. I got to start something with some cooking for tomorrow anyway.
Sauce.
Yes, sauce. And my uncle comes over every Sunday. We watch the football games, so that's always fun. But yeah, they could tell a story, and I like that. I did like that about old school wrestling. It was a lot of fun. Here's one. Main event says, one of my favorite matches ever was Terry Funk versus Jerry Lawler. Empty arena match. I didn't get any views, but it was something else. Wow, they had an empty arena match? That's nuts.
That was an I Quit match, right? An empty arena I Quit.
Jerry Lawler was he was entertaining.
His deal with Andy Kaufman was
awesome.
Absolutely genius.
That was awesome. Remember, Andy Kaufman would come in and go, I will beat any woman in this audience. He was so horrible.
His promos were so annoying, too. He's like,
oh, yeah.
You said I'm going to come down to Memphis, Tennessee. You're going to wrestle me, Mr. Lawler? Is that what you do in Memphis, Tennessee?
I will get my lawyer from New York. And we will sue you. Remember, he'd have the neck brace on. We will sue you.
Have you ever seen the Letterman clip on YouTube where it's uncensored?
No, I got to check that out.
Look, yeah, Jerry Lawler, Andy Kaufman, Letterman uncensored, and they don't bleep out anything he says. It is hilarious. But Lawler said in an interview that bit where they didn't really talk. He thought they were going to kind of make up. But he said that while they were going at each other, when he stood up in front of him, he said Kaufman just they gave each other a look that he hadn't planned to slap him. So they got that look, and he just gave him a full, and it was a legit slap, knocked him off the chair. It was totally unscripted, that piece.
Andy Kaufman was a big wrestling fan.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Loved it.
He had actually, he had pitched that idea to Vince Sr., actually. And Vince Sr. didn't want to go for it, and he kind of pawned him off to Jerry Lawler, and Lawler said, yeah, let's do it. It made money down in Memphis.
It made a ton of money. And it's still, Big Paulie's World of Sports Sim says, Lawler could think outside the box, which worked out well for him. Yeah, and I enjoyed Jerry the King Lawler. Him and Harley Race had some fun matches. Again, old school type. Terry Funk was always fun to watch. You know who I used to like? I didn't root for them. I always liked the Midnight Express with Cornette and those guys, but the Freebirds were fun to watch. The Road Warriors, when they were not when they came to the WWF, they were okay, but they weren't the same.
They were really just menacing. They weren't skilled, but the Freebirds, you had a great talker in Hayes. You had a great technical wrestler in Roberts. Then you had the menace in Gordy. I mean,
he was a big
They
for
hit every-
180 pounds.
yeah.
They're strong. They were fun. And I always loved the Four Horsemen. They were entertaining, whichever version. Kevin Sullivan was. I started seeing these guys after because when we got some independent channels up here, they had what I called Southern Wrestling that I had never seen in my life. And I loved it. I was like, this is so cool. I just loved everything about it. It was just a lot of fun. Yeah, the chat has built up a bit here with Wrestling Talk. So, anyway.
Right, hey, wrestling's good too. And I used to like World Class as well. I think I like World Class because they worked a little bit stiffer. And that was just the style that Fritz liked. So it came across as a little bit more brutal because they laid it in a little snugger than other places too.
There's some other really great interviews, if you can find them on YouTube, with older wrestlers. I'm talking even from the 60s and the 50s. Well, they still don't say it was fake, right? But they'll hint at, yeah, we were told to do certain things, but no one said I couldn't knock his teeth out. Like I want to say one was Fritz von Erich. I don't remember who he was talking about. And he didn't want to wrestle that guy because, again, just to go back to Bruno Sammartino and Buddy Rogers, Bruno never wanted to wrestle Buddy because Buddy, if he thought you were a threat, meaning like you could be the main eventer, he would try to hurt you. And he had done it to people. Normally, those guys wrestle with guys they trust. Makes sense. And I wish I could remember. I think it was Fritz von Erich and someone else, and they didn't like each other. They actually got into fights, like real fights in the back. But the fans wanted to see this matchup. And he goes, so we wrestled a program, he said, he goes, 3 months, and we wrestled. And he goes, they were bloody. He goes, he laid into me and I laid into him. And I goes, I'll leave it at that. And he kind of gave that look like, but we still did whatever finish they wanted. We did that.
And in between, everything else was just fair game. You look even a more modern example, like from the late 90s, Chris Benoit and Kevin Sullivan.
Yeah.
When, it started as a storyline, and then Sullivan's wife ended up leaving him for Benoit.
That's
and
right.
They still continued the storyline. So when they had matches, they worked ultra snug. A lot of that stuff, you'd see bloody lips.
Yeah. Apple Brian, how you doing? He says, saw Race take on Terry Funk. Terry Funk is another. You can find some fun matches with Terry Funk as he's saying hello to everyone.
That was actually, speaking of Harley Race, I saw, because I think that was the only time they had an NWA title change in Augusta, but I was in the Army and went to the match when Tommy Rich beat him in Augusta, Georgia for the title, which was insane. And then we'd watch those matches at the Bell Auditorium in Augusta. It only hold like 6,000-7,000 people max, right? But you would have thought there were 30,000, 40,000 people in the place that night.
The other thing that was interesting with what I call Southern wrestling that I had never watched, I never saw TV shows. I think that's what they call them, from the TV studio.
Mm-hmm.
WWF, the shows we watched were never TV studio. And I actually learned to love those shows. I used to wait and now for the TV championship. And you're like, there's 3 minutes left in this program. TV time limit, it's just Tully Blanchard, And then the other thing that they did with, was it NWA or WCW then? They brought back the old Saturday shows. And they came on at TBS had those crazy times. Like it was like 5:05 start. And it went from 5:05 to like 7:05, 2 hours of Saturday. And there were no big names usually, just mid-level. You could actually sit there and go, I honestly don't know who might win this match, And another one of my favorites in that time period was Disco Inferno. And he does a 2-hour interview you can find on YouTube talking about stuff. And so he goes, I built up this gimmick. It worked in the independent circuit. They go, bring that gimmick. He was friends with Terry Taylor. He goes, do that gimmick again. No matter how much you think it's stupid, people hate it and they boo the crap. And he goes, you just want to get that rise out of people. Mm-hmm. And he goes, I basically mimicked the honky tonk man, except I did it with disco. And he'd come and he'd do all that nonsense. And
won the fans. People loved to watch him, and he was great on those Saturday mid-level shows.
A guy like Adrian Street too, especially
Yep.
when he was in the South with that effeminate personality. You know, it was a Gorgeous George ripoff, but it still irritated people, sensibilities down there so much. And Street was a legit tough guy too. He was a shooter. He could defend himself. So it was okay. You know, he got in scraps with fans he talked about and, you know, clean house. And he wasn't a very big guy either. I think he was only like 5'9", 5'10", but tough as nails.
Talk about shooters. There's a wonderful, because I remembered a bit of this when I was younger, but Adrian Adonis was an a-hole, I guess, which fits because he looked like an a-hole. And, oh, God. There's another wrestler, big guy. And I remember the story. Oh, God, I hate when I forget names.
Murdoch?
No, Dangerous Dan Spivey. And he's a big dude.
Yeah, he's like 6'11".
Yeah, and he's like 300 pounds. And again, Cornette can't stand him, and there's some other people. But I like watching his interviews because he talks about stuff. They tried to build him up at one time in a tag team. It worked for a little while. Then he went, you know, he just bounced around, did some wrestling from organization to organization. He was in the WWF, and they're building up Adrian Adonis to meet Hulk Hogan. And I guess Dan Spivey was pretty polite or nice to everyone, like the regulars, you know. Then he goes, you don't hurt people. He goes, that's stupid, right? He goes, you do what you got to do, make it believable, but you don't rough handle it's not the regular, the jobbers, I guess. I mean, you know, you don't hurt them. He goes, Adrian Adonis was doing these things to these guys. You know, they'd come in the back and they're really hurt. You know, you can get hurt. You know, you get hurt in wrestling, it happens, but not like that. The guy's doing it on purpose. No need to do that. So Captain Lou Albano was managing Adrian Adonis. Adrian was doing his fat slob thing by then. Remember, like he was kind of doing the whole "I'm gay" thing with the pink trunks. He was in decent shape, but he was like really, and he had blowed his nose. He blew his nose and he went like this, and he goes like he was motion like I'm gonna rub this in your face. And Dan Spivey goes to Lou Albano. He goes, "I told you," and he told them. He warned Lou, and he warned that. I swear to God, if he does anything like, I will knock his ass out. In the ring, Dan Spivey knocks his ass out, basically, right? And the ref, who looks at him, goes, that's not, you know, like that look, like, what the hell are you doing? He goes, well, you can either count or do something and disqualify me, but this. Now they go to the back, and Adrian Adonis goes at him, and he just beats the Jesus out of Adrian Adonis. Then he makes a joke. He goes, hey, Adrian Adonis didn't get those matches with Hulk Hogan. It was someone else. He goes, they should pay me a percentage of what they made because it would have been that fat ass. He goes making the money. But yeah, it was Dangerous Dan Spivey. Great story. I remembered that one, reading that somewhere when I was a kid. You know, not a kid, but younger. And now I got to hear him talk about it. A couple of people talk about it. It was fun.
It's interesting listening to the Rougeau brothers too when they talk about
Raymond and Jacques Rougeau.
Yeah, when they talk about how the British Bulldogs too were bullies, and especially Dynamite Kid. He was a real dick to everyone in the back. And I think it was Jacques that ended up punching him and dropping him in the back finally when he just got sick of his antics, you know. But the Bulldogs, they'd say, were just terrible backstage like that with the way they would bully people.
And I think that's the interesting thing that obviously you can't really capture that in a game, or maybe you can. I don't know. You can make it up in your head. That's the really interesting stuff about wrestling that I love.
Yeah.
The old school, and now I get to, because people are talking about it, and it's just fun. Anyway, that's my way of trying to get Anthony to do the wrestling game by dragging him into wrestling chat.
It's in the works.
Awesome. So, fun chat. I kept Anthony a little longer than I thought I was going to. I apologize for that. Glory Days Boxing, thank you very much. Excellent game. Featherweight set coming out end of January, early February, in that time period. Lots of good fighters there. Check out Glory Days Boxing, sidelinestrategies.com. The floor is yours, Anthony.
Appreciate it. And, shout out to everyone that supported the game as well. And a special shout out. I know you just got one of his games too, Gary Brown. Give his games a look. I bought Turf. I'm sorry.
Oh, the Stone Mountain Press.
Mountain Press. Mm-hmm.
That, you know what got me to do that? You're playing the football game 7-on-7. I enjoyed it. I said, I don't want a football game. I'm like, and someone in your chat or
Dice United.
I went, soccer. I want a soccer game. I've been looking at soccer games. It's a fun game. I will try to get it up on my channel. I'm not an expert. When I do put it up on the channel, I probably will do things wrong as Dave Gardner's or play it the way I want to play. Very fun game.
He's got some good stuff. He also has Legends of Boxing, and that's people aren't you guys competitors? And no, we Gary and I talk all the time, and the people. We design games basically as a passion. We don't make a living off it. Keith Avalon might, because he has a million games out, but the rest of us, we get along very well, and there's no competition. We share ideas and talk. So yeah, check out Gary's games. He does a great job.
Stone Mountain Press. I've been playing. I printed it because I wanted to play. I wanted to play it right away. It's really neat. Again, don't look. These are on regular paper. I just print, but it's basically a team card. You have offense and defense. And again, this is why I do things the way I do it, because this stupid camera that I paid for is supposed to focus. Anyway, there's offense, defense, goalie rating, and it's chart-based, or chart-driven. But it's a couple of charts. It's really easy and it's fun. You can play it quick. It's not even that. I enjoy it. Someone on one of the Facebook, I think it was Sports Simulations, that I also belong to, as well as Glory Days Boxing, wonderful Facebook group. They said you can play it 10 to 15 minutes. I go, yep, but I always play everything longer. I can't help it. But it's fun. It makes sense. And it's something you said, and a couple other people said, but I didn't click. When you're playing the football game, because Dave Gardner said this before too, highlight game. Then when you were playing the football game, it clicked with me. What happened? What was the big thing that happened during this time period? That's the way the soccer game plays, and it's a lot of fun. PDF, very affordable, even the printed. But like I said, I wanted to play it right away.
That's one thing. A lot of the football games, because it's such a complex thing to replicate to the tabletop, it takes an hour and a half to play through a game when you're trying to go fast. Grid Zone, you keep that flavor and excitement, and you're done with a game in 20 to 30 minutes, which is cool. Phil Daniels, a classic match.
Yeah, 19. Thank you for sharing this, Phil. I'm going to read it. He saw Pedro Morales versus Freddie Blassie at the Atlantic City Convention Hall for the title. That is cool. That is cool. So many. Again, the old school wrestling, I just enjoy that. Again, by 10 years, definitely, it's fake. It's just fun to watch. And it lost me. Well,
it's like when we play these games, for 20, 30 minutes, you get immersed in it and you kind of lose yourself because you're reliving, whatever your childhood heroes or what you used to play as a kid, because, we didn't have computers and video games then. For me, when I grew up, I was outside doing sports. And if it was bad weather, we were inside playing tabletop sports, so kind of the same concept, I think, with wrestling back in the day.
Michael Forbes, hello, how you doing? So, Anthony, you've been playing a couple other games on your channel. Inside Pitch Baseball, and you're replaying the Merkel season, but after that game.
Yeah, I'm replaying the basically the pennant run after the Merkel game, 1908, using Fall Classic Baseball for that, which is really a really fun game. I put it up there with Payoff Pitch and Inside Pitch as my three favorites. The one thing that probably turns people off is it doesn't have really detailed splits. The splits are very simplistic, but everything else about the game is really top notch and it flows well. So definitely recommend that too. Yeah.
Excellent. And that's a fun game. I've seen people play that. You know, I think about buying other baseball games, but I have so many seasons that I haven't even ripped or cut.
That's the problem. You know, in Fall Classic, he's already got out 103 seasons.
Yeah, he's got a lot of stuff.
Insane.
But you know, with you guys playing it yourself and a couple other people playing it, classic card, Tony Porter, he's been playing it, and that's not the name of the YouTube channel, but you check it out. It's classic
Cards and Dice TV with Tony Porter.
Card and Dice TV. That's it. Thank you very much. And a couple other people, ID Gesture. It has scratched a little itch with me that at some point I will pick up a season. It's a fun game.
So let me ask you about wrestling now. Since right now, like I said, I've got the framework. It'll follow Glory Days Boxing, but there's still openness.
Yeah.
What would be things you would like to see included in a tabletop wrestling game?
I would like a couple of these robust.
There will definitely be that. And on that, I was thinking, like, you have that up, putting the one section would be the feud section, and then a rare event thing on the other side.
So I like that. See, with wrestling, I don't mind charts because it's going to give you that extra little flavor to make your mind enjoy it.
I would probably still, I'd have the game chart like Glory Days Boxing. I'd have and probably only 2 additional charts. So one similar to that event, and then another one for feuds and stories.
I think managers would be fun. You know, like interference and stuff like that. Because that was part. As a kid, I was always annoyed. I'm like, why doesn't a good guy have a manager who interferes? Why is it always the bad guys? You know.
I think Bob Backlund was one of the few faces that actually had a manager, and really that was just because Backlund couldn't talk worth a damn. But
he had Arnold. Do you remember when Backlund? It was back again. WWF person, because that's what we saw. It's not a knock against any other wrestling, because I enjoy it all, especially when I saw the other type of wrestling. Again, I say Southern wrestling. It's probably Georgia and Florida. Then I saw Texas wrestling, which came up with the stupidest gimmick that I was so excited for: a scaffolding match from Dallas Cowboys Stadium. It was like their version of a pay-per-view, but it really wasn't a pay-per-view. You only could see it. They filmed it and they would show it weeks later, but you could watch it obviously live. I think they got like 20,000 people in there to watch it. So it was like one of the big events there. And so they're showing it 2 weeks later. I don't know who wins, right? There's no internet then. Basically, these guys were 30 feet up, clinging to that scaffolding, just sitting down and smacking each other. I went, well, this is not what I thought it was going to be. You know, then years later, you see Mick Foley turn to The Undertaker going, throw me off the, and he's like, what? Okay.
No, that's part of it too. Stuff back then that was, you know, I'll use the Buzz Sawyer, Tommy Rich cage match. I mean, I did when that film finally came out on YouTube where they thought it was lost. What's up, CC? I was like so excited to go watch it, and I'm watching it. And I'm like, God, people now just do. I think that the suspense and the I guess the payoff in wrestling matches now, it's kind of been taken away because everyone does all this crazy shit throughout the whole match.
I think there's way too much flipping around in wrestling now. They've missed. Everyone goes flying out of the ring from when I watch it once in a while. I want to see some old school wrestling. We all know it's fake. Let's go back.
But there's, again, you know, I mentioned MJF from AEW. If you can find it on YouTube, watch Jungle Boy versus MJF match. They do a really good, like, throwback 80s style psychology based match.
Versus what is Jungle Boy versus who?
MJF.
I will check. I've been watching a lot of wrestling on the old matches on YouTube.
And Michael, appreciate that, man. Hey, any suggestions you have too, you know, send them to post them here, send them to Glory Days Games 19 at Yahoo.
Yeah.
That's probably what I'm going to work on next when I get the original 8 sets for the boxing game.
So what are your thoughts? What do you, again, I like to see managers. I like to see, I know you're going to have it. Like run-ins, like you get a crazy roll and someone runs in and does.
Yeah. There'll be like the a pre-show thing with interviews, like I said, segments, potential coming off the cards. There'll be an event chart roll where you can have run-ins, crazy stuff happen there. And then I want to have a chart maybe for some specialty matches too, like steel cage, Texas death match, dog collar match, that type of thing. And then definitely some managers as well. And so again, the framework of the boxing game, but add some of the flavor that you get with professional wrestling. And I also will set it up so that the matches are shorter than like a 10-round Glory Days fight will be. So you could do like a card of 3 or 4 matches.
Captain Carl says, Freddie Blassie said that pro wrestling was 95% fake. Sometimes a wrestler's ego or other things also figured in at times. But they still, no matter when they did it, even now, they can get hurt if they do something wrong. And they're just tremendous. It was entertaining. I like the old school stuff. I can't help it.
Oh, great Muda.
Oh, yes.
And he was one, I'd watch him in Texas too. He would, oh no, I'm thinking Muda on WCW, but Great Kabuki in WCCW had to miss too. And he would work super stiff. He had that kendo stick. He was always fun to watch.
There's just check out, if you can, on Daily Motion, you type in Andre the Giant versus Stan Hansen. Well, the thing with Daily Motion, I don't go there much. All kinds of other poop pops up around. Just ignore that stuff. You're sitting there going, why is this stuff on here? I don't need to meet sexy ladies. I just want to watch the wrestling match. But unbelievable match. It goes about 17 minutes with a just fun match out from Japan. And his dad, Kabuki. Okay.
Great Kabuki. And that guy didn't even look like he looked like a dumpy old guy that sold newspapers, but he had that mystique about him, never spoke.
What's
up, Philip?
As he says, beta tester here if you need someone for wrestling, I guess. So now what are the wrestlers going to be like from the 80s, 70s, 80s?
Yeah, I'll be honest. I'm definitely going to start there. How I envision that going is I'll do different territories for each set, and probably 2 territories because the territories didn't carry rosters of 100 wrestlers. So 2 or 3 territories in a set and work through the 80s. I honestly do not know if I want to do very many modern guys. I don't like the modern wrestling, and hopefully that will still go over, but definitely Abdullah the Butcher will be in there. He was classic heel.
Yeah, absolutely.
He wrestled in 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000s.
Some of these guys don't realize how old they are when they're still wrestling. It's incredible. The one card, if you could make, because you don't find it much. Gorgeous George.
The original flamboyant wrestler.
Yes. Gorgeous George.
He had the valet that would come out and spray the perfume.
His matches, that shtick is hilarious. Don't touch me. Don't touch me.
Yeah, I would say after the 80s, I would probably go backwards and do 70s and some 60s and 50s versus 2000s. Iron Sheik is for sure. What's up, Tex?
What's up, Tex? Main event. The original Sheik, that's different. Yeah, from Detroit, which I didn't know about until I started doing this research, my own little research, watching all this stuff on YouTube. Mark Lewin.
Maniac Mark Lewin. He wrestled in Florida a lot. He was part of Kevin Sullivan's crew down in Florida when Sullivan was doing the demonic thing. He was purple. I think he was Purple Haze. I know he was, or he might have just been part of his clique, but. And the original Sheik, too, was Sabu's real-life uncle and actually trained Sabu and Rob Van Dam, if you ever watched
Rob Van Dam. That was one of the more, still a little back, but Rob Van Dam, I liked him. I liked when Mil Masters would come up, a little Lucha Libre stuff. Not a lot, but it was different for the WWF. Jimmy Snuka
when he went out, that's still a fun match, him and Don Morocco. Again, different type of wrestling, but it was, I think what people lose if you go back and you look, like you were talking about the match you saw and you're like, oh, it's not as good as I thought. But if you had watched it in the day with the build,
you'd have been nuts.
That's what I'm saying. Because I remember the build up with Snuka and Morocco. And so I still get excited when I watch that match.
You know, that Rich and Buzz Sawyer match was just built up to like mythical proportions, like the greatest thing ever, and we're sorry the film was lost. So yeah, you expect this like Gone with the Wind masterpiece, and it's like, oh, it's just a bloody cage match, you know, but still, it was still fun to watch.
There's just so much, and again, the Southern.
Okay, Mark Lewin was Purple Haze.
Yeah,
I thought so. Thanks, Michael.
Yep, Michael put that up. The Russians. Oh, that was the Koloffs.
Koloffs, yeah.
It's just fun stuff. It was. Remember the infamous he'd come out and sing the Russian national anthem. That was in the early '80s, and the people just boo and boo and boo.
That was Nikolai Volkov, right?
Nikolai Volkov. Yeah, Nikolai. It was funny, just fun stuff. All right, I could talk wrestling for hours.
You got to get your sauce going.
I got. Teresa's gonna come in here and hit me with a pan in about 5. I'm gonna go. We'll go another 5 minutes and we'll stop. Jack Briscoe, Mr. Clean, Buddy Colt. The Briscoe brothers were tag team champs in a lot of in the territories that they were.
They were big Florida guys too.
Nick Bockwinkel was a good wrestler. He had some decent, good matches. And you know what's funny about him? I researched and just read a little about. He never wanted to. He stayed basically in a couple of territories. He made really good money, and his thing was, I get days off. I don't want to go over there. I get days off here.
Well, and that's funny. You talk about the grind, like in Watts territory, the miles they put on. But AWA had a good thing. They covered a lot of space, but they didn't have matches every day to where, you know, they'd fly into a place or, you know, and do a match. They come to Salt Lake City basically once a month, you know, versus like when I was in the Army in Georgia Championship would come through Augusta every Monday. So those wrestlers were driving town to town, and they had 2 different circuits down there, but they were wrestling like 8 matches 6 days a week.
Stan Stasiak, the Heart Punch.
Heart Punch, which allegedly he actually did kill someone with that in the ring.
Ernie Big Cat Ladd. He gives some hilarious interviews. Oh, my God. He was not PC. We'll just leave it at that. They are, my God, are they funny. Football player, Ernie Big Cat Ladd. Chiefs and Chargers, I think.
That was a big path for football players. I mean, Manny Fernandez played in the NFL. Wahoo McDaniel did too.
Yeah, Wahoo McDaniel. Steve Mongo Michaels.
Yeah.
Bill Goldberg briefly was in the NFL, but he was a college football player. He had a good shtick till they ruined it. He really, I know it was like he was a 2-trick pony. He did a couple of, but it was the he could rev up the crowd, and then that's as important. And to have him lose the way they were talking about that, like what a horrible way to have him lose his win streak. It was like this horrible match. I remember going, really? That's how you let this guy who you built up? It's just a lot of. Oh, someone asked about. Where is it? ECW. That was nuts.
ECW would be one more modern set that I would include in that game, just because that was an entertaining product and not. It really was, and they worked stiff too. It was
Von Erichs, the Von Erichs, Allen, and then the Freebirds. We talked about them. Hans Schmidt, the Pride of Munich. I don't remember Hans Schmidt, but that's a great name. Oh, Ox Baker scared me as a kid. Was he the guy with the with
the big Fu Manchu?
Okay, I never seen Ox Baker wrestle. My dad was a barber. In the barber shop, he had a gazillion wrestling magazines of guys I never saw wrestle. But I would read through, and that as a kid, I would literally put the magazine down because he scared me. He was a frightening looking dude. Stan Malenko. The great Malenko? Is that Stan? Or is that someone different?
That was Boris Malenko. That was Dean Malenko's dad.
Chief J. Strongbow, who ironically was Italian. He was. It was pretty funny.
And Alan mentions Gino Hernandez. If you see on YouTube, The Dark Side of the Ring, they did an episode on him. It's really a tragic story.
Yeah. Gino Hernandez, he had a good look, was a good wrestler. Yeah, I haven't watched that yet, but I heard that's really good. The Dark Side of that episode. I've watched some others. Tully Blanchard, Alan brings up. See, people like old school wrestling.
Yeah.
George the Animal Steel, who was
a school teacher.
Yes, a math teacher, a professor. That's why you never saw him wrestle during the school year. You only saw him in the summer and on Christmas vacation. There's someone they build a great shtick for. They turned the whole. I give the WWF some credit, unless it was George the Animal Steels or the other person, where he fell in love with Elizabeth and he kind of became a good guy. And he still did his same antics, but he was like the Hunchback of Notre Dame kind of deal. You know what I'm saying? It was interesting. It was kind of fun. Goofy.
A lovable freak kind of guy.
Yep. Bad News Brown. Oh, that's the mob killed him. Bad News Brown. He was ECW. No, was he
Bad News Brown? He was WWF.
Okay. Missing. Oh my God. Yeah. We talked about him, Alan. Superstar Billy Graham. Loved him. Loved him. Such a great. Oh, you got to have this. Brad brought it up. This was one of my favorites as a kid.
Parts Unknown.
Parts Unknown. Moondog Spot and Moondog Rex from a kettle. Whatever.
Speaking of weird tag teams, the Bushwhackers. You know, later in WWF, they were kind of like a goofy comedy act.
Yep.
But go back and watch some of their Memphis stuff when they were the Sheep Herders against the Fabulous Ones. They had brutal, bloody matches. Insane.
Eddie Guerrero was a good wrestler. If you ain't you ain't trying. Grand Wizard, lots of fun.
So hey, we're getting a lot of names in the chat now. Let's do our top 5 wrestlers, Al.
Okay, before we leave, because I can hear Nurse Teresa come with that pan to whack me.
Starting with number 5.
Number 5. I already know who wrestlers that I enjoyed watching. And this is going to be more not recent, but just because I've watched more matches. I like Stan the Lariat Hansen. His matches are fun. I like Stan Hansen. And the other thing was, I guess he was blind as a bat and would really nail you on occasions.
He would scare people, yes.
I like Stan Hansen. This is, again, Bruno's probably not going to make this list, but I'm just talking about guys, and I love Bruno Sammartino, but I've not been able to see enough matches what I like. And he's had good matches. He had some good matches. But a lot of his stuff is at the end that I've seen. Actually, like I said to Anthony, the stuff he did in the 80s when he came out of retirement for the WWF was good. So, but yeah, Stan Hansen. I like Stan Hansen.
Okay, I'm gonna go. So he's your number 5.
Number 5.
He was close to the list. For my 5th, I'm gonna go with Bruiser Brody. He was a great look, a menacing look, and really sold his character well.
Yep. Bruiser Brody. That's a good
one. Number 4. Who you got?
Number 4. I already know who my number 1 is. Everyone's going to laugh, but I don't care because I don't care if the match was always the same. I don't care.
I've got mine too. I'll go number 4 first. I've got Nick Bockwinkel. He was a good combination, I thought, of great on the mic and did a very believable and very good at psychology in his matches.
Number 4 for me could probably be higher, but because it popped in my head now and I don't want to forget, it's a tag team, the Midnight Express with Jim Cornette.
Both good workers.
Yep.
And Bobby Eaton did not look like a classical wrestler, but he could work his ass off.
Okay. Number 3. Oh, there's so many wrestlers that I'm trying to think of people who. Number 3.
I did enjoy Disco Inferno. I don't care if it was a goofy shtick. I enjoyed Disco Inferno. Again, probably shouldn't be as high as number 3, but it pops in my head. Disco Inferno.
I'm going to go with Rick Steamboat, not because he was a great worker, but he brought out the best in others. His feuds with Valentine and Flair were legendary.
Even Randy Macho Man Savage, he had some good matches with. Tremendous.
So number 2, I'll go first on that. Tough, all around, legit tough guy, and did a great job as the NWA champion for a long period of time. Harley Race.
Harley Race was fun to watch. That's a good one. Harley Race. My number 2, again, because I didn't expect this, and there's so many old matches I've watched.
I know, right?
I like it though. I like it. Number 2. You know, and it's funny because I really don't have a WWF guy on here. And I like there's WWF wrestlers I do like. But I'm trying to think of the matches I've been watching now. You know, I'm going to say Bruno because I've watched a lot of Bruno Sammartino matches. To me, there's still. I wasn't Bruno. I'm going to say Bruno number 2, and I could almost put Hulk Hogan, but
Bruno was loved though, and he held the title for what, 11 years?
Yep. And then he lost it, come back, win it again. Didn't want to do it anymore. Him and Superstar Billy Graham. You see these matches; they're just fun to watch. Superstar Billy Graham should have been on this list. Now let's see, but I'm going to go Bruno. Probably should take Disco Inferno off and put Superstar Billy Graham on, but I already said it. So Bruno Sammartino 2, and so we're down to 1 now. Correct?
Want to do it together?
Ric Flair.
Woo!
I don't care. People say his matches were the same. I don't care. To me, they're not the same. He perfected the flip over, walk away thing. That's incredible to me. And they're like, well, he always did it. I don't care. It was great stuff.
You know, he too. I mean, and you know, there's other guys deserving like Dusty Rhodes.
Here's another.
You could put him instead of Disco Inferno if you want.
I probably should.
You know, but Flair did a great. I mean, to me, best all time on the mic. You know, I think Dusty Rhodes and a couple others come close, but Flair number 1 on the mic, and he lived his character in and outside of the ring, and you know, as hard as he partied and still able to go work 60 minutes and put on matches he did with guys like Steamboat, and he had a good feud with Valentine too. So yeah, he's to me number 1.
And again, a lot of good names here. We're gonna leave shortly. Stone Cold Steve. You're not right. You're not wrong. It's just, again, I was just thinking of matches I've been watching. Randy Savage, Andy Kaufman. We talked about. Hello, Glenn.
He says no, Andy Kaufman.
Alan Gregg. Disco Inferno was horrible, but his shtick was.
Thank you, Alan.
All right.
From now on, Al will be known as Al Disco Inferno, Red Sox fan.
Fine with me. I loved it. I thought it was great. It was hilarious. So many wrestlers I enjoyed, but Ric Flair's matches were always fun. Remember, he transitioned to almost what I liked about Ric Flair. He was the first that would wrestle anybody. Meaning, sometimes he wrestled another quote unquote bad guy or a heel. Most of the time, he was the heel. When he was a good guy, he was a dirty good guy, which I loved. He still wrestled the same. He didn't change. It's just the people got behind him. The Rock, I like. Good showman. Stone Cold Steve Austin. There's a lot of good wrestlers. It's just so much fun. Rowdy Piper.
Piper, top 3 guy on the mic too. Yeah. He had a great feud with Buzz Sawyer.
Roddy Piper. I've told this story before, and I'll tell it, and it'll be the last thing I'll say. And people are like, that's a lie. But I'm going to tell it. This will be the last thing I say, and then we'll turn it over to Anthony, and then I got to go help cook. Met Rowdy Piper. We went to the wrestling matches. We waited. They're coming out of the Civic Center. And my friend said, no, don't go yet, because they always went. I only went once in a while. And the quote unquote good guys come out. You're like, hey, how you doing? And they just totally ignore you. Just walk right by. This is outside. We waited a long time. He goes, let everyone clear out. They're not going to come out. So we go to the McDonald's across the street and wait and come back. So now Rowdy Piper, Paul Orndorff, see all these. I love these guys. Bob Orton, and then they had a fourth who I never remember who the fourth guy was. They come out and they're bad guys. And they're supposed to stay in character and this and that. We're like, Rowdy Piper, Piper's Pit. Yeah, it was awesome. And he looks over, he goes, you guys enjoy the matches? And we're like, yeah. They come over, they give us like a quick little handshake, right? You remember that. I never rooted for the good guys ever again. So definitely Rowdy Piper, top 5. Disco Inferno, gone. I have redeemed myself to Alan now. I still like this. Anthony, close out the show before I say goodbye to everyone. Thank you to everyone. It was a lot of fun. Would you like us to do this again? And you know what? We have some special stuff coming up thanks to Anthony, who set up some things. We have some really cool stuff coming up. And I don't know if we're doing it here or on Anthony's channel. I don't care. But we have some cool stuff coming up.
I think yours, because you have the bigger footprint right now, and I think she will like that more.
Okay. We have that, and we might have some other stuff coming up, and it's thanks to and due to Anthony. And I thank you. I hope we're able to do this soon with some of these quote-unquote interviews and just fun chat. So, Anthony, thank you very much. Remember, check out his YouTube channel, Bleacher Bums Gaming. Kurt Bergler's going to have a bout up at some point soon. And again, because he uploads, I don't know how long that takes. I keep looking. Anyway, my phone went dead. But Ali Tyson using Glory Days Boxing on Kirk Berglund's channel. Anthony, if you don't know, people in the chat, creator of Glory Days Boxing, my favorite card and dice boxing game, card and dice game, period, can be purchased on SidelineStrategy.com. Heavyweights, light heavyweights, middleweights, welterweights, lightweights, bantamweights, and featherweights by the end of January or early February. Awesome game. That can be purchased on SidelineStrategy.com along with Payoff Pitch and the other stuff. But it's a lot of fun. Anthony, thank you very much for joining.
Appreciate it. Thanks, Al. Always a fun time talking to you. Thanks to everyone in the chat as well. Fun to go back and talk old school wrestling. So, yeah, featherweight set, like I said, probably latest early February, first week of February. So
I hope we revved you up for wrestling now.
I will be working on wrestling next. Glory Days wrestling.
Awesome. Thank you, everyone. Health and happiness. You know what's going, folks. Peace. Love you all.